in just a second.
So in between there are ads, so it takes a few minutes in between for our little ads.
Oh,
and
okay.
And it starts in the next segment, so it'll come in and out.
Will you put that? This is live.
Yeah.
Oh.
On the radio. It's
On the
not,
radio.
but on
Oh.
TV.
And he's responsible. Like, how does he get a segment on this?
He bought
Hello?
a segment on TV.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Leah, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, hi.
And then she has every Wednesday we
Is
do
everything
live
good? We have a few minutes, or are we have to go on?
Well, you're on in about 6 minutes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We'll control levels from here, okay?
Okie doke.
Yeah. Just gotta.
You know, when I did insights,
Issues,
there's somebody who took the shine off my. Was my makeup person?
Well, then my father.
Getting
oh,
spoiled
that's
already.
what-
spoiled already.
This is shoestring.
It's the best kind. Grassroots. We talked
Right,
about
David?
climate change.
Oh,
That was a good show.
David?
Yes.
That, what's that?
Okay, the one thing is,
Yeah,
we
that's a
got
good
this stupid
I
thing
couldn't come
here.
back in the afternoon.
Me neither. I had
the,
meetings.
But I asked, they said they would circulate they agreed to some strategies, I guess.
Do we have a couple of minutes or so?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have CZM,
I'm just,
so we use a lot of funds for climate stuff.
okay, we got a good key, a reasonably good key.
So we're actually hiring.
All right, can you open the camera on?
But she starts in
Yeah, the
July.
camera's on, everything's
She's
on.
going to be a climate person. But it's me and
We gotta get
Neil,
all of
my
this in
program
there.
manager. We used to have a couple of other
Pretty
things we
good.
did, but they moved away.
Okay.
So
Okay, how you far out?
nobody quits my office.
Yes, I'm worried he's located.
They move away.
There's no sound.
They
Well, there is
retire.
sound. I thought you said you weren't gonna turn the sound on.
It's muted.
Yeah.
No, it's going out.
is on AM 760 KGU, broadcasting across the islands and raising public awareness in Hawaii. Now here's your host, Jay Fidell.
Thank you, Jack. This is Jay Fidell, and I'm back from Turkey. I hope everybody saw my article in the paper about my adventures in Turkey. And we're going to do ThinkTech now after having recovered from that experience. And we have a great show on energy today, Hawaii, the state of energy. And Sharon Moriwaki is here. She is our senior executive producer. She's going to be here at the table in a little while. And if you didn't know, we broadcast on Ustream, everything we do, and we broadcast on something called Spreaker, which is internet radio. So we got internet video, internet radio, and you guys, I hope you realize the world can see you. When I say you guys, I probably have to tell you who that is. Okay, at my left is Jesse Souki. He's the director of the Office of Planning of the state of Hawaii. And boy, that's an important thing. We're going to find out more about that today. We have George Atta, director of the Department of Planning and Permitting, which controls just pretty much everything here in Honolulu. But George, to have you here, it's like the earth trembles. You know what I mean? People, they should be listening carefully to what you have to say.
I guess I gotta be careful then.
Parse your words.
Be careful, you guys. Everybody be careful. We have Maile Alsup. She's here. And she tells us about Hawaii Energy, the energy efficiency organization, here on the Negawatt Moment. We have this moment with Maile and others from Hawaii Energy every single Wednesday. And today we want to talk to you first, as usual, in the first part of the show, Maile, to find out what is going on in Hawaii Energy.
We actually, it's pretty exciting. We just launched a Facebook promotion this Monday, actually, on to promote our solar water heating rebate, which we recently have talked about before. We've just increased the rebate from $750 to $1,000. So the Facebook contest had started on Monday. It runs until Saturday, August 24th. All people need to do is like our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/Hawaii Energy, and they just got to go on, and they actually, if they share with us, we're asking them to share with us what they would do with the $600 savings that they would have saved if they had installed a solar water heater.
Okay, let's break this down. First of all, you said you want them to like the page. You know? And it seems like we live in a world where everybody's always asking you, please like my page, click like. But sometimes they don't tell you exactly why you should like the page. And you make the decision on click, on sort of personal relationships rather than any rational basis. So today here on ThinkTech, we're going to be rational. We're going to ask you why they should click like.
Because you can enter into this really great contest. You can enter to win actually a energy saving prize pack valued at $50. We're having one winner each week. And in addition to that, we have really great Facebook posts about interesting stuff going on in the energy efficiency world, new workshops that we're holding. So it's a really great way to stay in touch with us and to learn more. So in addition to the contest, it's just really good to like Hawaii Energy.
I'm doing it now.
Oh, are you?
Oh, wow. Nice work. Nice work if you can get it.
Yeah.
So Maile, tell us about the $600. I would like my $600. How do I get it?
You don't get $600. We're asking people to share with us. We're asking them to share with us if you had actually installed if you had installed a solar water heater.
Let the record reflect, Jesse has actually connected, and my guess is he's already pressed the like button.
That's right.
Yes,
I'm expecting my check.
Let me clarify, you will not get $600, but you could enter to win a really great energy saving prize pack for a value of $50. So there's going to be a conserve power switch, energy monitor. So there's some really great little nifty tools that can help you save energy even more. But we just want you to share with us if you had installed a solar water heater with this $1,000 rebate, you could save at least $600. So what would you have done with that savings? And we've had really great responses so far. People would have bought in shoes, an energy efficient refrigerator. Somebody said they would. They won't have to save so much for Christmas presents for their nieces and nephews. So there's some really great creative answers up there from people as to what they would do.
Good. Well, you guys are very creative. You know about creativity. I want to get a window into exactly how that works. I mean, I expect You guys come on the show every week. You come on with these fabulous creative ideas, and you're trying to sort of massage people to get on board about energy efficiency. It's
Yes.
not easy because people are busy, they don't have time for that, and you have to sort of penetrate their awareness as we
We're
like
trying
to
to
do.
make it fun and exciting, so it's an
Yeah.
important subject. And
So I want to know how these ideas germinate. I mean, is it you? Do you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and write it down on your
No.
nightstand?
It's a great team of people that we have at Hawaii Energy that get together and we brainstorm and figure out what we can do next. So,
This is at a meeting
yes.
in the office in the
Yeah.
afternoon. Is there
Yeah.
food involved? Is there wine involved?
No, there's no wine. Those happen off-site at unofficial meetings. So sometimes there's food. Yeah. So it usually comes up. We start with a little idea and it gets bigger. So it's a great bunch of people.
If you guys want to see what Maile Alsup looks like, all you got to do is tune in. You know, we're on KGU 760 AM, but we're also on the internet. So you could, if you go right now to Ustream, ThinkTech, Ustream.tv/ThinkTech Hawaii. You will see Maile. You will meet Maile. Okay. So Maile, we haven't entirely finished. I mean, can you tell us about what's coming up next week, or is that the kind of thing where if you tell us, you have to kill us?
If I tell you, I have to kill you. But I can let you know that Ray Starling, our program director, will be here.
Himself.
So it'll be
Must be
a
a
surprise. So you
blockbuster,
just
yeah.
gotta tune in for next week's show.
Okay, well, that's sort of a message to the public, you know, that they better tune in next week.
Exactly.
Find out what the really big news is from Hawaii Energy.
Exactly.
Okay, Maile, thank you so much.
Thank you. And don't forget, everybody, go to facebook.com/Hawaii Energy.
Done.
And like.
And like our page
And
and,
now you
enter
have
the
good
contest.
rational reason to do that.
Exactly.
Thank you, Maile.
Thank you.
I want to add that if you want to call us and talk to Maile or anybody else here, you know, Jesse or George, you call 296-5467 and see what happens here at KGU 760 AM. So we're going to move on to the rest of our show, and we're going to see what we can do here about the title of the show, which is Clean Transportation in a State of Clean Energy, with great focus, right, on transit-oriented development as a part of the planning process. So I don't mean it in the way of an introduction. I just want to know, you know, in a couple of sentences, what you guys do. George, you're a senior. Am I right? Can I say that, Jesse?
Yes,
Okay.
respected senior.
I mean that in every way possible.
Okay.
So George, what do you do?
You mean my position or
Yeah.
related to the topic itself?
Well, let's start with the position and go to the topic.
Yeah, I'm the director of City's Department of Planning and Permitting, and as you kind of said earlier, the reach of the department goes very broad. Anything related to land use and permits and planning would come through my department, and because of that broad scope of the department, we get involved in pretty much every aspect of city responsibility.
Yes, you do.
So,
You're everywhere, and you are making our city.
yeah, well, and you know, with such a broad reach, of course, you can't please everybody. So you know, you have people who like you and people who hate you. So
Yeah.
it comes with the territory also.
Government is more difficult these days, you know. I learned that in Turkey, by the way.
Oh, okay. I can just only imagine what that might be like in Turkey.
Well, we live in a democratic world, you know. Everybody has expectations through the internet, through technology,
That's
through
true.
things like the ThinkTech studies. You know, everyone really has expectations that government will respond. And sure enough, not only in Turkey, but now in Sao Paulo, in Brazil, you know, the same kind of thing. We want this, we want that, and we're expressing ourselves in the street. Now, it hasn't happened yet in Honolulu, but, you know, it could.
Well, we noticed the effect of social media on the way people communicate, and that is impacting the way we do our community outreach and even some of our planning and permitting processes, because clearly we need to reach broader segments of the community in order to get the best kinds of plans and permits approved.
Do you have something where they could click like also?
We're starting to use some of that in some of our community meetings where we hand out these voting devices, and so as soon as we ask a question on the screen, we ask them to, you know, whether they like it or don't like it, and at the end of the presentation, we'll know based on different issues what the vote was, and we can actually show the vote tallies on a bar chart, and I would say, okay, this idea got so much votes, this other one didn't,
Yeah.
and Yeah, so we're starting to use that kind of device in our public
I
meetings.
commend you on that. I mean, I think that's the way the world is going. Social media really has traction these days, as you can see in the newspapers. And if you don't have to necessarily listen, but I mean, abide by it, but you can listen to it and then and know what's going on out there, because we live in a, what do I call it, a more direct democracy these days because of the internet.
Yeah, and the funny, well, I don't know if it's funny, but what we're finding out is that there is no one public anymore. It's really many publics, and they all have their different niches and their different communicating methods. And so if you're trying to reach a broad audience, you really have to be able to engage or use the different media in order to really touch them. Otherwise, you're going to miss big segments of it.
Absolutely, right on 1,000%. Wow, I'm really impressed. So let's talk about transportation and TOD and what you're doing.
Okay, as the planning director, I sit on the board of directors for the Rapid Transit, the HART board of directors. So I sit in all the meetings. I'm a non-voting member there, but I'm involved in all the discussion of the rail transit. And so talking about TOD, at least in Honolulu, that means the rail plus other things. But I think, as the mayor likes to point out, when we say transit-oriented development, it's not just rail, it's rail and bus combined that forms these transportation hubs around which we're trying to develop these higher density, more urban-like communities. But having said that, all along the rail corridor, not every TOD is the same. A TOD found in, say, Kaka'ako or downtown Honolulu is different from a TOD in Waipahu or the Kroc Center or US West Oahu. So sometimes people say TOD and they have one image of a TOD. In reality, the TODs differ depending on the community that surrounds it.
Yeah, good point. I mean, and every one of them is its own creative, may I use that term, creative process, project.
Right, and the way we've been going around, we've been treating each TOD station around each station and having separate community meetings in that community and getting input from the community as to how they would like to see the area around the transit station to be developed, and what kind of linkages and connections, whether it's bike paths or pedestrian connections and stuff. And I think the word multimodal is becoming more and more overused, and to the point that I'm not sure everybody quite understands what multimodal means. But reality is that people get to a place in different ways. Train is one, when it comes. Bus is obviously another, car, bicycle, walking. In places like Manhattan, cab would be a different kind of thing, but it's all kinds of ways to get from point A to point B.
Hold that thought. There's much more we have to talk about, but right now I hear the sound of music. Whenever I hear the sound of music, I have an overwhelming urge to have a break. Okay. So why don't we take a couple of minutes for a break? This is ThinkTech on KGU 760 AM with George, Atta, and Jesse, Jesse Souki, right here talking about planning and TOD and energy and clean transportation of Hawaii. We'll be right back.
760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
Look into energy.
Problems this afternoon. Stopped on the H1 freeway heading out to Nahea. It's in the fourth lane from the left.
Yeah, I just
If you're
saw him
going that way, the
yesterday.
Honolulu slows at Kaiser
Monday,
Hospital. The H1 slows at the west end.
Fisheries thing.
Inbound traffic from the west slows at the Middle Street merge, and it stays slow through the downtown area. No problems to the windward side. We're looking normal going out to Hawaii Kai.
Hawaii, the state of clean energy, is also brought to you by Hawaiian Electric Company, powering the growth and development of Hawaii since it was chartered by King Kalakaua in 1891. Today, Hawaiian Electric and its subsidiaries, Maui Electric and Hawaii Electric Light Company, serve more than 95% of our state, providing reliable electric service essential to our quality of life. The Hawaiian Electric companies are also leading our transition to clean energy. By increasing our renewable energy use and improving energy efficiency, we're reducing Hawaii's dependence on imported oil and providing a more sustainable and secure future for Hawaii. For more information, visit hawaiisenergyfuture.com. Hawaii, the state of clean energy, is also brought to you by the State Energy Office of the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. How can we secure a better future for Hawaii? One way is clean energy, and the State Energy Office is steering Hawaii to that clean energy future. Hawaii is rich with natural renewable resources, the sun, the wind, the ocean, and the land, and they are all being tapped to meet Hawaii's clean energy initiatives to generate electricity, create jobs, spur economic growth, and reduce our dependence on imported foreign oil. To learn more, visit energy.hawaii.gov.
Now back to ThinkTech Wednesday on AM 760 KGU. Here once again is your host, Jay Fidell.
We're back. We're live. We're here with ThinkTech. Thank you, Jack Waters. Always nice to hear the sound of your dulcet tones. And Sharon, now you're at the table instead of Maile. We are so happy. If you want to see what Sharon looks like, dial up Ustream/ThinkTech Hawaii, and you'll see her. Anyway, if you want to call us up here on KGU, call 296-5467. But fair is fair, Jesse. We want to get a little of your view of this. Mm-hmm. So the first question, sort of like the question I first asked George Atta, is what do you do down there at the Office of, Office of Planning?
So at the Office of State Planning, we take a more regional, statewide perspective, and we basically have 4 programs. We have a coastal management program where we look at managing uses and development on the coast. We have a geographic information system where we use spatial data to help decision makers make better decisions. We have a special plans division. We look at all kinds of planning. We're looking at, for example, the last year we prepared a report about agriculture and making us more food secure in the state of Hawaii.
Very good.
Yeah, economic development.
How do you sleep at night?
You know, after you do something like that, too much doom and gloom, but there's a positive way out. We were there before, years ago, and now we're not, but we can get back there. And then the final part is our land use division, where we represent the state's interest before the State Land Use Commission. And one thing I wanted to comment on, you were asking George about public input and public process, and I think that's the big difference between someplace like Turkey, for example, where they're having this protest and the public's in the street, in the square. It all started from a construction project that people didn't like. Well, I think in Hawaii...
You hear that, George?
Yeah, in Hawaii and in the United States, like you said, we have this wonderful democracy, and part of that democracy is an administrative process. We have due process. People have an opportunity to be heard. Your views get to be shared. There's an administrative, there's a court. Those other countries don't have that, and so people take to the streets. So it's something we should strengthen and not try to get around. It's part of the process. It may take longer, but I think in the end, you end up with a better project that serves the community.
I absolutely agree, and I feel more strongly about that than I did a month ago because of what I saw, in Turkey. And I felt, here going into July 4th, a moment for July 4th, this is a great country. With all the troubles and all the problems, it is a great country. And what we have here is that new kind of democracy. Barack Obama talked about that when he first got into office. He said, we can have direct democracy with the internet, or at least more direct. We're still going to have representational government, of course, that's constitutional, but we have the ability to talk to each other and engage in a large civic process and listen and be at least a chance of finding harmony that way. It's a beautiful thing. I think. Thank you
It's
for
music
saying
to
that.
my ears to hear both Jesse and George talk about get involved in the community in different modes and different ways so that you really can develop for the future with as much input as possible rather than, you know, going forward and then kind of retracting after the fact. So it's nice.
So at the end of the day, though, we have to be really smart about it, especially in Hawaii. Hawaii, you know, Hawaii cannot afford to make mistakes. Hawaii has to do the right thing, and you know, it's like what we do, what you permit, George. It's going to last 100 years, maybe 200. So you know, everything has to be with due regard. We have to be as smart as we can, as smart as Singapore. Forgive me for saying that. That's how smart we have to be.
Okay.
So you know, transportation, big issue, lots of contention. TOD somehow in the middle of that contention. And we have to, you know, make the best plans we can make. So tell us about what you're doing in transportation and in energy relating to transportation.
So the Office of Planning, the governor asked that the Office of Planning take the lead in coordinating with state agencies about transit-oriented development, given the investment by the city in the Honolulu Rail Transit Project, and the fact that the state has a lot of property around these stations. And TOD generally, you know, you can have different meanings for it, but basically what it means is you're developing to take advantage of transportation, the amount of people that come through the station area. And a half mile approximately around the station is usually the walking distance. There's different ways to measure it, but a half mile is around that area. So what my office has been doing is coordinating with the state agencies, providing information and support about transportation and transit type development. It's not like any other kind of development, except that the focus is more for density, because you're taking advantage of the amount of people that are using the transit stations.
As well you should.
Right.
And it's a natural process.
Walking, multimodal, incorporating the transit stop.
Multimodal, George.
The bikes.
We'll get back to that.
As the way George explained it, right? He clarified it for us. So, you know, more of that. And the energy component is, there's this concept called vehicle miles travel. You know, I've heard some planners say, if the one thing you focus on as a planner is lowering a vehicle miles travel, that would solve everything.
Yes.
And so transit does that. It allows us to get out of our car and walk around and get from point A to point B.
Smell the roses.
Right. And not what I hear a lot, you know, it's a cultural shift too. You know, I grew up on Maui. It's a very rural area, and when I grew up there, it was probably half the development. And I don't have any gray hair yet, but you know, it's a very different place. And we didn't have a bus, you know, and there was no transit, and you drove everywhere. And when I moved to Washington, D.C. for work, I didn't own a car for the first time in my life, and I wondered how did I get around, and I got used to using DC's fabulous metro. And you know, they've got these little communities around every metro, not what you'd have in Hawaii. Hawaii would be different, but you know, definitely each station had a feel, and it was a community. The University Metro was a certain feel to it, the City Metro had a certain feel to it. And I never owned a car. I got around fine. I got to work, I did my shopping. You know, I learned that you can't carry, you know, 20 canned goods from the metro station, that you shop in a smaller, just what you need for the week. And that's the kind of thing that we're going to have to adjust to and get used to. But I think, you know, transit-oriented development can be a positive thing if the community gets involved and shapes it and makes it serve them.
Yeah, I think people in Hawaii, they like to dwell on nostalgia. And they like to keep things pretty much the same way, day after day, and they don't like change too much. And yet, you know, and George, you're right in the middle of this, and you're looking down the road at it, Jesse. You're looking at this macro picture for the state on those things. But the fact is, the world is changing, and our community must change too. And the whole thing about TOD is all a matter of change and taking opportunity out of the change. You know?
Right.
And I mean, you know, I think you see that as well as anybody, because you are permitting the changes and well, you plan them, George permits them, but both of you are actually planning ahead.
Well, George plans too, the TOD plans. And
Yeah. I'd like to take a moment, since you're going to talk about the East Coast and Washington, D.C. and all that stuff, to tell you about another part of my trip after Turkey, okay? I came back to New York City, right? And we were in a hotel right next to, guess what? Grand Central Station.
Okay.
You know, I mean, if you guys ever have the chance to organize a sort of an inspection tour, on government time or not, you've got to go see the new Grand Central Station. It is unbelievable. It is a city. There's everything in there. It's a shopping center, plus, the best restaurants, anything you want. There's an Apple store in Grand Central Station that is the biggest Apple store in the country. Not any bigger than Berlin, which just opened, but it's really big. There are hundreds of people there all the time. All I'm saying is that Grand Central Station is like a TOD, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And it serves everyone.
Right, right. I think it goes back to the notion that along with the idea of TOD, that's merging with a planning concept called live, work, play. It's part of the smart growth principles. The idea is that you try to consolidate your development in more compact areas, and then within that compact area you can have a complete lifestyle. You can live there, you can work there, you can play there, and so essentially you can have a whole life without going into a car and driving to it. And by doing that, you reduce your VMPs that Jesse is talking about, because you don't have to drive. So the car really becomes an option, not a necessity, in this new kind of live, work, play society. And so related to that is, as part of our planning, is to try to create in each of the TOD districts essentially a new kind of urban lifestyle, urban living that people find attractive. See, the old model of a 3-bedroom house in a single family in the suburb, that's really an old model, and it's not sustainable both environmentally and so this new urban model is, hopefully, if you can create communities that people want to live in, that's urban and high density, then you can reduce the pressure on suburban development and stuff like that.
And keep the green.
Yeah, keep the green.
Right.
Yeah, really is what we're trying to do with that.
Yeah. Well, we're in a time of change. That's part of the change. We all have to get on board about the change. And I actually hope somebody's listening to the show gets the idea, that you guys are the stewards of change in many ways. And if we want to preserve the green out there, instead of paving a place over, we're going to need to go up. We're going to need to have city center. We're going to need to have TOD. It can be creative. It can be beautiful. It can help the economy, all the good things. So how do you do it exactly?
Well, I think, as I'm on the other idea, I think it's partly educational, but partly I think it is the role of developers and the planners and architects to create really wonderful urban spaces. Because if you can create wonderful urban spaces, people will want to live there. Then they'll take the pressure off the other places, and then, so that when a young person, and we're already seeing this, that young people these days are less inclined to want to buy or own a car. We've seen that statistically. So what that means is that that's a fit for an urban where the car becomes an option, not a necessity.
Pardon me, but I hear that sound again, George. And the message is coming through into my ear.
I hear it.
You hear it. We all hear it.
We all
We all hear the sound.
I thought you were just hearing voices, but I hear it.
I hear that too. So I'm going to take a short break. This is ThinkTech Hawaii on Wednesday, Energy Wednesday, with my wonderful co-host, Sharon Moriwaki, George Atta, and Jesse Souki. We'll be right back after this break.
I was wondering why you were going.
760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
Traffic's been slowed down by a stalled bus that had been blocking one of the center lanes of the H1 Evabound near the Aiea Heights Drive overpass. It has been moved over to the right shoulder lane, but still causing a slowdown. The Moanalua backed up and stop and go when you get alongside Moanalua Gardens. H1 slows at the airport on-ramp on the viaduct. No problems going over to the windward side. We're looking normal going out east to Hawaii Kai.
With the Kahiava Wind Farm on Maui and the Kahuku and Kawailoa Wind Farms on Oahu, First Wind is pleased to create clean, local sources of energy powered by Hawaii's trade winds. Understanding our unique environment and host culture, First Wind develops projects that support local communities and provide net benefits to native wildlife, embracing the concept of caring from Mauka to Makai. Ukamakani, may the wind blow towards a sustainable future for Hawaii's people. For more information, visit firstwind.com.
ThinkTech Energy Wednesday is also brought to you by Hawaii Energy. Hawaii Energy is a ratepayer-funded conservation and efficiency program administered by SAIC under contract with the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission, serving the islands of Hawaii, Lanai, Maui, Molokai, and Oahu.
Now back to ThinkTech Wednesday on AM 760 KGU. Here once again is your host, Jay Fidell.
Thank you, Jack. We're back. We're here. We're live. We're having a good time. We always love the breaks. The breaks are the best time. You know, we ought to save up the breaks and play them later or something. Anyway, during the break, we're talking about Cheryl Soon. Cheryl Soon was the Director of Transportation Services for the city, in the early 2000s, I think. Maybe under Jeremy Harris there back when. I know.
It may have even been a little earlier, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe the 90s. Yeah, the 90s it was. My God, Harris. The 90s is almost. It was before you were born, Sharon. Anyway, she said, similar to what Jesse was saying a little while ago, that if you shorten the amount of miles that you have to travel to get what you need, you'll have a better transportation system, fewer people on the road, less congestion, less use of oil, all that stuff. And how do you do that? You build neighborhoods, or may I say rebuild neighborhoods, because back when, Hawaii was all about neighborhoods. Honolulu was all about neighborhoods. And now they all blend into one great big island-wide neighborhood. But back when, you wanted to shop, you had your shoes fixed, you went to the Waimanu area and had your shoes fixed or whatever it was, Anyway, so we're on a good path here. And the question I still want to ask, maybe Jesse has some ideas, is exactly what do you see in a TOD? If I give you SimCity the game, and I tell you, you have all the chips now, what do you want to put in this container, this TOD container?
So, I'll talk from my own experience, and because my experience, I think, matches up with the things that we want out of a TOD project. So, again, when I lived in DC, when you're in the TOD area, it's very dense, and but at any moment, you walk out maybe 15 minutes and it's the head to a trail somewhere. If you want to get to a park, you can get on your bike, and there are bike lanes and safe bike paths that take you there. So the green is within reach. If you at home around the station and you want to go to work, it's one station to the next. If you want to go and meet your friends up at a bar, it's the station at work to another station. Here's a great thing that I think a lot of us can relate to. There's a station planned for the Aloha Stadium. When I was in DC, we didn't have actually a station that went to the Redskins, where the Redskins played, but there was a bus, and so you could take the bus from the rail station to the game, and then the bus back to the rail station, and then home. So you could drink it up and not worry about driving and have a good time. Yeah, so I think walkable, bikeable, open space, units that can accommodate growing families, shopping nearby, mixed use is what they call it. I think those are the main ingredients.
I got to add one other thought, by the way, since you're talking about the East Coast. What I failed to mention about Grand Central Station is that right outside Grand Central, what do you think? A bike deal, where you put your credit card in and you get a bike to ride around with, and there's hundreds of them out there. And it's the same thing you're talking about. It's connectivity. You can use the TOD area as a way to connect with everything you want, and may I say, it's a big apple.
Yeah, it's a
pomegranate.
That's a good timely comment because George and I were just at a cycling promotion thing this morning, and the mayor was there and organized by the mayor's office, and the governor's chief of staff was there, and we had the regional Jared Bloomfield, right, from EPA, and it was about bike sharing. And you maybe you want to talk about that.
Yeah, well, actually, the New York stuff, we know that New York has 10,000 bikes in their bike share program. We have a pilot program in Kailua that's starting, and actually the City and County of Honolulu is starting a planning for a bike share program. So hopefully we'll catch up to New York, at least on a per capita basis. But the other thing about TOD and the transit system, besides being multimodal, is that it's also reliable in terms of travel times, so that you get from West East Kapolei to Alamana in 42 minutes. Doesn't matter if it's raining. Doesn't matter if there's congestion or traffic accidents on the highway. You get, the times are fairly reliable, and I think Jesse can vouch from the metro system that you know when the 10:22 train is coming, and it'll get you to point B in 22 minutes or whatever the time frame. It's it's very reliable. So.
Yeah, that we had a show a couple of weeks ago on that, and we learned.
Dan
exactly.
Grabowskis.
Dan Grabowskis is here, and he was very clear about that. And I don't think it's that hard. You have this equipment. The equipment starts at a certain time and gets to the next station at a certain time. And then he's going to publish all that, and electronically it's going to be fabulous with apps and whatnot.
Right.
So we'll all know when the train's coming. But to go back into this whole notion of TOD, there have been concerns raised that some owners and some developers would take advantage of the system and make uhu bucks by trading off land that is right around the TOD area. And I mean, is that real? Is that a real concern? And if it is a real concern, what, if anything, can we do or should do to diminish that risk?
I think it's a real concern only in my mind in the fact that the land values and prices sometimes may push out the lower income classes, and so you end up with a kind of community that's unbalanced from an income standpoint. So, and because of the land value speculation, and government does have an impact because depending on how high you let the buildings go, the higher you let it, then it raises the price of land value. And so I think this height issue, which I know some of the concerns about heights in Kaka'ako.
Oh, like in Kaka'ako, yeah.
Is that it's not just a visual thing. I mean, the visual thing is one thing about heights, but there are a number of other issues with heights. One of it is the land speculation aspect of a higher density, higher heights, and I think government can control it to a point, obviously by not making every place 700 feet, but at the same time, you don't want to give one place a competitive advantage over another. Yeah, and so that's another thing that we have to balance out as well. So I think, but at the same time, having said that, the TOD will develop based on market forces. So because otherwise the investment won't come there. So it's a balancing act government has to play, allowing the economic incentive to develop there, but not making it so overpriced. And part of it is good planning in the sense that I know both the mayor and I think the governor's office recognizes that you have to have affordable housing in the TOD district. It's for the people, especially the lower income people who not having a car will help them own a piece of property. So in the requirements for planning entitlements, we have to make sure that affordable housing is clearly a component.
Well, there's many reasons for that. I mean, one reason it would seem to me is that you don't want to have expensive housing in a TOD. You want to have a lot of traffic.
Right.
You want to draw people and give them a big apple to play in.
Building communities.
Building community.
Right.
I mean,
It's
really
really a
important.
mixed-
And if it's
mixed
all
use,
corporate
yes.
retreat, $3 million apartments, that's going to defeat the purpose.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'll add to that in the 2005 ordinance that created the structure for TOD planning in the city has a requirement that affordable housing is considered in that process. On the state side, I mean, the projects that are happening within HCDA, there's a affordable, it's a reserve housing requirement.
Housing,
So
Not
workforce
really affordable.
affordable. Well, it's workforce affordable, and then the Pohokaina project is all affordable.
Yeah,
it's policy.
Yeah. Well, let me shift a little, and I'm asking you this question only because Sharon made me ask.
Energy Wednesday,
I
I
think we're going
hope.
to take a break in a minute anyway, so you'll have time to think about it. What is the connection with all of this and transportation that is actually green transportation? Transportation equipment, transportation planning, design, equipment, all that, the trains, whatever it is, which will save on foreign oil, which will, provide, help the utility create a green kind of grid. We need that, and we're kind of missing it. And one of the things about the Energy Policy Forum, this is going to be discussed on July 12th. Did I say that? July 12th.
July 12th.
July 12th, when we're going to have our Energy Day program at the
YWCA.
we're focusing on energy in terms of solar and wind and geothermal and all those sources and all the issues around, the development of our new energy economy. But we really haven't made a whole lot of progress in transportation. And if you go outside and look at H1, you will see a lot of gas-guzzling cars and very few electric cars, for example. And so how does what you're talking about, Jesse, I mean, are you planning this sort of thing into a green transportation future?
Well, we cannot control, really, green vehicles. We can have policies that encourage the purchase of green cars, but we don't control the manufacture, we don't control the supply. What we can control better as a state is the kind of power we feed into our grid and whether or not it's a green grid, right? And so the transit project, the rail, will be pulling power off of the grid. So we can control what kind of energy goes into there. Is it going to be wind energy? Is it going to be ocean wind energy? Is it going to be geothermal? Clean energy that comes from Hawaii. That's how we can cut down on the fossil fuels, getting all of those cars off the road that burn a lot of fossil fuels. And, it's not a policy that discourages people from driving. People will probably still have cars, but you won't need to drive as far. You won't want to drive as far.
So it's a question of degree. It's not like it's not like cutting off smoking one day.
Yeah.
It's a question of degree.
It's a question of degree.
Yeah. And everything we can do.
Right. And another thing too that you don't really see is that when you build denser in a TOD type planning, the infrastructure that you need to provide for that is more centralized. And you'd be surprised at how much money it costs to pump water. Just the energy that you feed into a pump to pump water from here to there, or moving sewage using pumps and energy. It uses a lot of energy, and if it's centralized, less energy, less distance, it's common sense.
It strikes me, George, that your job, the job of DPP, has gotten so much more complex. Because you have to consider all of the things that Jesse has to consider, really. It's all the interrelationships of all your areas, for example, Jesse. You have to bring them in and be cognizant of them and plan for them.
Well, I mean, I think, fortunately we do have, people have been thinking about many of these issues for a long time. So even within the city's planning process, we have a general plan, development plans, and, development and the land use and the zonings. And in it, the idea of the transit corridor is part of it is to contain growth so that it doesn't sprawl out. Because as we know, suburban communities that sprawl out use more gas, more cars. So by controlling that, just by that act alone, you're reducing the energy future so that it's less automobile intensive. So that's a green aspect. I think the fact that you're shifting from car to rail or car to a multimodal system means, again, the VMTs that each person per capita generates is lessened. So in every one of those actions, you're moving towards a greener utility, a greener energy system. And there's no silver bullet that will solve our energy problem, but so you have to do it incrementally, give people different kinds of options, whether it's an option to live in the city as opposed to outside, or to use rail as opposed to an automobile, just by giving more options. And over time, I think the market pricing will favor the rail, because people realize, gee, owning a car is pretty expensive. Gas prices go up, and and rail fares will not go up at the same rate that gas prices will go. So I think over time the market will then support all of that shift to the green energy. But it's going to take time, and role of government is to provide the right framework and the options that people can choose choose to be smart, actually.
So does CPP put together the zoning, and is that how you control, or how do you get smart growth and planning, and what does the city do to control or guide it?
Yeah, DPP's role is to set the zoning. The zoning is what sets the densities, the heights, and the setbacks, and the uses. So that's our main vehicle of control, of managing growth.
And in the state planning system, those general plans and community plans, which the public is involved in updating, the city takes the lead on, the zoning is what implements that. So it's a public vision in a way.
Yeah. Well, that's the voice of Jesse Souki. He's the director of the Office of Planning of the state of Hawaii. And the other soft-spoken, thoughtful voice was George Atta. And he runs DPP, and we're going to take a break.
I'm hearing this song, the music.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for
760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
This afternoon, slowdown going west was caused by a stalled bus in Aiea. It's been moved out of the way, but it was blocking one of the center lanes of the H1 Everbound. And that got the H1 stop and go on the west half of the airport viaduct. The Honolulu slows at Fort Shafter Flats. Inbound traffic from the west slow from the Middle Street merge to the Punahou exit now. Conditions are normal to the windward side. No problems on out to Hawaii Kai.
ThinkTech Radio is also brought to you by InmoB. Since its inception in 2007, InmoB has grown to become the world's largest independent mobile advertising network, serving over 100 billion mobile ads to date. It has built its product in parts of the world where the mobile phone is not just a screen, it's the only screen. After launching in the US and Europe in 2010, InmoB has more than doubled its global network from 7 billion to 60 billion impressions monthly, and has offices on 4 continents, in Bangalore, Johannesburg, and London, in Nairobi, New York, and Paris, in San Francisco, Seoul, Singapore, and Tokyo. InmoB. ThinkTech Hawaii is a Hawaii nonprofit corporation organized in the year 2000. Its purpose is to raise public awareness about the importance of technology, energy, agriculture, and globalism to the diversification and expansion of our economy. We do this by television shows on community television and on OC16, by newspaper articles, and by our ThinkTech radio series on KGU 760 AM. We also do it by panel programs and events, including our monthly luncheon programs with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association. ThinkTech, working to raise public awareness in Hawaii. Check us out at thinktechhawaii.com.
Now back to ThinkTech Wednesday on AM 760 KGU. Here once again is your host, Jay Fidell.
Thank you, Jack Waters. We're back. We're live. We're ThinkTech. We are so animated during the breaks. we have these conversations. I wish I could be captured like a genie in a bottle and play it back later.
You have to do more. You have to come back.
But one of the 27 points we discussed in the last break was the thing about planning for sea change and climate change. And sea level change, all that. And when I was traveling, this is all about my trip, you know. When I was traveling, I read in the paper that Mayor Bloomberg in the city of New York has demanded a plan with affirmative action in protecting New York from sea change. And indeed, it's right there at sea level, you know, and a couple of feet would really devastate the city. But he's actually doing things. He's causing his government to take affirmative steps to protect the city, because we all know it's going to happen. And in Hawaii, I don't think we do that. And you know, I wonder when it's going to get real serious, because we, like New York, we are vulnerable to anything like that. So planning and permitting, it's all somehow involved. And the question is whether we have the, may I say, political will to do what Bloomberg is doing. Do we?
Well, nothing delivers the message like superstorms. Superstorm standards.
Disasters.
Yeah, right. Sandy
You got the message on that.
Two times, right? Twice in a
Yeah.
But we are doing things, you know, in Office of Planning, you know, we're working with and reaching out to other agencies and the counties to, well, first we had a policy passed, the climate adaptation policy in 2012, and that was very helpful to lay out the policy framework. And you know, we're trying to look at how to integrate that policy into on-the-ground management decisions. And that takes people getting used to the idea of planning ahead, you know, 50 years. You know, as a future studies graduate from the University of Hawaii, that doesn't faze me, 50 years. But, you know,
You're like a sea longer.
yeah, we need to think ahead. You know, like we said on break, the lifespan of a building is 50, 75 years. So, you know, we're looking at, in the turn of the century, a sea level rise of, what, 3 feet? So we should start thinking about it. So, you know, we're making movement, but I think we can do more. The resources you put in today planning for tomorrow is much less than responding to the impacts.
Current crises.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, may I say, and you probably have dealings with this all the time, you know, at one point, the money we spent on infrastructure was X% of the total government budget, okay? Now, we cannot do that anymore. It has to be double X% of the government budget, and we really have to rebuild, renew, maintain all of our infrastructure, and that includes really everything. We cannot afford to let it go.
Well, you know, the aging of the infrastructure is one thing that's definitely is important. The other thing you're talking about, looking at sea level rise, and I think transit planning is the fact that most master plans, and this is just traditional, are either 10 or 20-year plans. That's just been the standard of the profession. Sea level rise is something that's going to come 30, 50, 100 years. So the time frames they're not in sync. Even our general plans are really 20-year plans. So, you know, there's not a match. And so while everybody knows about sea level and agrees that we should do something, it's outside of the standard planning time frame. So we either need to extend the planning horizon of our general plans and master plans, but it doesn't fit in right now within the current regulations.
Are there any like geological or environmental studies that have, you know, the whole city involved and can go out 50, 100 years and say this is where it is, and then so as you plan, even if you do a 20-year plan, you kind of know, hey, you know, that's on the horizon, you know, something like that. Are there studies?
There are actually studies just like that.
Things?
Some in the works, a lot of being done at the University of Hawaii. You know, one study that they're working on with NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is doing a sea level rise like slider tool where you can slide in and see where it is over years. There's another one, interesting one, that is looking at, okay, with sea level rise that doesn't look like much on itself, what is the magnitude of impact when you layer a storm over that, a hurricane over that? So that's another one that's coming out. But I think that, and maybe George can add more to this, but at a permitting level on the ground, you know, you need a higher resolution and level of detail, and that's the rub, because future climate change is not a forecast, a prediction. It's our best estimate based on data. You can't really use historic data, so it's very difficult to. And a scientist will probably say this better than I do. Chip Fletcher's the guy from the University of Hawaii. Yeah. Get him on your show; he'll tell you. But you know, at the granular level, how do we make that rational nexus so that we can make changes in the policy, permitting realm? So.
The other thing is the money. You know, I mean, I'm sure that Bloomberg is going to spend a lot of money on his in executing that plan, and we have to be prepared to spend that money. And the problem is that people don't like to spend large amounts of money on infrastructure.
Especially if it's 30 years down the line or 50 years down the line. I mean, I'm not even going to be alive. What am I spending this money for, right?
So does DPP have like a fund to do these kinds of studies so that, in fact, you can be kind of in front of the curve?
I think it's not so much funding, although, I mean, we can always use more money, but I think it's really changing our planning horizon. It's something that the 20-year time, 25-year plan as the outside for the general plan has been something that's been in place for half a century. That's just the way people look at it. With climate change, maybe you have to just change your lens and just extend, say, it becomes a 50-year plan or a 100-year plan, and then that will change the framework in which the contents of that plan.
And it's also a cultural change too, and I mean like meta culture. You know, people need to see it as a problem that they want their electeds to pursue and do something about. Like Bloomberg, I'm sure has the support of his constituents given the recent storm. So.
And he has the force, you know. I mean, it's support, but it's also, I'm going to do this. Don't stand in my way.
A leadership personality.
And you know I'm right.
Right.
Well, I think it sounds like to me we're in a kind of transition, don't you think? One thing and another. Rail's only part of it, TOD's part of it, but you know, and energy is part of it for sure. We're becoming more aware as a community that we need to do this kind of plan. You guys are right in the middle of it. You know, I hope you sleep well, and I sleep well. I sleep better. We're gonna have to close now. I sleep better after this conversation, knowing what you guys are doing, what you're thinking, and your sensibilities. Thank you so much, Georgiana.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Great discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon, as always. This is ThinkTech signing off. We'll see you tomorrow for Asia in Review. Aloha.
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 Aloha.